everybody. Thanks for joining us for our local discovery session today. We have a couple items on our agenda. First, I'm going to kick off our project updates. Um, we are currently in the first week of Sprint 29. We are working on some grant management items, activity logs, have some development going on in case notes. We are building the UI for the goals and objectives, but we are still talking through what those preset lists are going to be. We're going to be looking at that a little bit on today's session. We have some customer profile updates. We're doing some updates for the pre-screening for the training providers, some additional training program slash provider updates as well, and then some local area office demographics, working on some user roles, and then some data migration. So that's all the stuff we have in development. We're continuing discovery on the WIOA application. We have that in a really good place. I do hope to bring that to you guys in the very, very end of April or early May to start taking a look at that. That just has a little bit more review on the state level to go to. We're kicking off some discovery and assessments, continuing on service work, which we're going to be looking at with you guys today as well. And then still doing some work in the career plan. So we need to start turning our attention to the customer facing view. We've got some signature summary stuff moving forward. And then we're also going to be kicking off discovery for exits and outcomes. Do you guys have any questions before we jump into the working session today?
Olivia, before you start the working session, I think we might want to mention that the UAT session for today was moved to next week, and that was the UAT for the ETPL pre-screening. So if there's any folks that are on specifically for that, you are more than welcome to hop off. And we will send out more information for that next week. We had some things pop up last minute and we weren't able to get that ready to go for today. So just the core folks that usually attend our weekly sessions are the ones we need to stay on.
Thanks, Taylor. All right. So today I want to walk through, I had several folks participate in feedback surveys for goals and objective preset listings. And we have finally gotten through all of that feedback, reviewed that with the state, and made some adjustments to our goals and objectives. I want to walk through the final listing that we've come up with. This still is going to be signed off on at the state level, but we wanted to get it in front of you all one more time and talk through that. I want to give a little bit of context before I jump into this. So our goals and objectives are going to be part of the Universal Career Plan, which is going to replace the IEP and the ISS. We're now going to have a digital career plan. It will be universal to support both an IEP and an ISS. The system will have business logic that will help determine, based on program enrollment, which type of career plan it is supporting. And we're still working on some of the content on these pages, but we will have a career planning area. And as part of that, we're going to have several different pages where we're doing different actions. One of them will be where we establish our goals and objectives for the customer and their career plan. And we will be able to add goals and add objectives and have a list of view of all of our goals and their objectives that fall under those, and then further link to the services that support those objectives. Taylor is going to be walking through more of the service stuff. I had a few things here to look at and go over with you guys. One is the list of goals and objectives. So whenever we add a goal, one of the things that we have changed with the IWDS 2.0 is we have categorized goals into various types. So we'll have employment goals, education goals, training goals, support service goals, and follow-up goals, and then other, because we know not every customer is the same. Somebody might have a goal that doesn't quite fall in one of those categories. And so the system is being built to allow for you to add whatever you need, but also give you preset options that can help support the customer and their journey. Whenever you select a type, you will then have another drop down where you can identify the goal. So the presets we're going to look at, we have them all mapped to these different types. And then once you pick a type, you'll see that set of goals. And then once you pick a goal, you'll then be able to identify term, status, your planned start date, planned end date, actual start date, actual end date, and programs. Um, and then if there's any goals that have a like bracketed information, there's additional data that we need to define to customize this goal for the individual. We are still working on figuring out how we're going to do that. We're going to be meeting with Brian Richards at NIU to talk that through a little bit more to make sure that this can help support various reporting and output needs that we have. So we can make sure we're using it, whether it's an ONET code or a SIP code or a career cluster, whatever we're using is going to support work we're needing to do later on. And then for our add objectives, we had the other button to add objectives here. Whenever we need to add objectives, we identify what goal is this objective associated with, and it will pull all the goals that you've added to pick from, and then the system will know, what the goal is and the type it falls under, and then there will be two ways this will happen. Let me see. One, if you pick employment, education, or training, we'll be able to then see the paired list of objectives associated with the goal and the option to choose other. So you can add your own objectives and you can do the same thing with goals. Or if you pick a support service or follow up, we have categorized each of those objectives. So you can either pick show all and see all the objectives that tie to the support service or follow up goal you selected, or you can pick a category. And what that will do will be to narrow down the list of objectives. So if you picked linkage to community services, you would only see the objectives tied to linkage to community services, just to make that list a little smaller and easier to navigate. Um, the categories and objectives for support service and follow-up service were all mapped to the service matrix and the policy around the types of services that can be provided. So when we're serving adults or dislocated worker versus youth, our list will look a little different, especially for follow-up, because there are different things that can be provided under those. If they're co-enrolled, you will be able to see both. And then when we're going to identify the programs they're associated with, is where we can drill that down to only show the appropriate ones based on what we pick. So, do I have that other tab? So once we pick an objective, then we can define it with a little bit more information. So I wanted to give that little bit of context here on how they're added. So as we're looking through the list, you have that to refer back to. So let me open our lists. So for employment, I'm not going to read every single one of these, but I'm going to sit here, let you guys kind of read through these, and then I'll scroll down to the next part of this. And I wanted to talk through a little bit of the feedback that we got. We got some really great feedback. And all the ratings that we received for goals and objectives, our highest ratings were always in essential or important. I'll show you guys a little bit of what I'm talking about. So we had a majority of the time we were seeing things rated as essential and important. We had a few neutrals, and so we took a closer look at our where their highest were neutrals. Um, And based on what we are seeing here in the comments we got, it wasn't that these were like not really necessary or like something that were used. They were just not used very often. We do want to maintain those in the presets for, the handful of customers the LWIAs are getting to be able to support them with those kinds of goals, even though you might not get a lot of people who come in and want to start their own business. That is an option. So we want to have that preset there to be able to pick from. And we also had some comments too that some of these goals and objectives were very specific. So in some instances, we did go in and kind of tweak them a little bit to be less specific. But in some instances, we noted that we needed to provide additional training around why some of these were as specific as they were, so that our field staff can better understand how to use these to serve a customer. So we have a lot of training that will be coming out around how to use the goals and objectives and their purposes. And we're also going to be mapping the employment, education, and training to the service matrix as well to help provide some clarity there around the different um, services that these goals and objectives are intended to support. Um, Another thing we got some good feedback on was uh some additional goals and objectives that were really good, but they were more career planner or local agencies type goals. They weren't necessarily customer specific goals like enhancing cross agency collaboration to streamline workforce development services. That should always be a goal that the locals and the career planners are having, but that's not necessarily a goal the customer would have. So we were trying to keep these goals and objectives very focused on being customer centered. Um, I believe that was a big part of what we were seeing in our employment section, the additional feedback we got here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit so you can see the last few that we have. Oh, and one other piece I wanted to note. Some LWIAs do not necessarily offer the services or are not able to support some of the objectives because those services are not offered by the OWIA, which we understand this also came into play a lot in support service. We did want to maintain those objectives in the lists because you can still have it as an objective and have a referral service under it to show that, yes, we understand this is an objective, and even though we're not able to directly support, we did provide a referral to help them meet that objective. Um, so I'm going to pause right here and see if anybody has any questions or concerns about the listing they're seeing for goals and objectives or the response to the feedback we got for employment, or I'm sorry, education.
Olivia, one thing that just occurred to me, and I don't know why I didn't think about this before, and you may have said something about it, and I just didn't catch it. Um, since everybody everywhere has been doing IEPs and ISSs on their own, and this is supposed to standardize it, is there some sort of logic in the system that is going to prompt you as to how many or essential goals you should be setting for IEPs, or is it just open where you go in there and you pick one and you're done and good, or like
Yes. So we'll have in the system prompts to make sure you're setting the minimum required. We're going to require at a minimum they have an employment for adult and dislocated worker or for youth and employment or education. And then as like we can add other things in. So like if we see training services being added, know like, hey, you should have a training goal. Um, we do want to like for youth we can like have action items that like a follow-up goal needs to be added because all youth are required to go through follow-up. And then when we see folks like go into employment for adult and dislocated worker and now they trigger the follow-up, like they exit with employment, unsubsidized employment, we can note that, hey, we need a, follow-up goal here to be aligning with the services and activities they're receiving. So we do plan on having that in the system, like ways to note. Additionally, we're going to have some very robust training around that. So career planners understand, the action items they're being told, like why at a minimum do I have to have this specific goal, like an employment goal or for youth employment or education.
okay, thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Perfect. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to jump over to our employment list. Um, We had I kind of I started with education, but I know your survey started with employment. So um I'm gonna again let you guys kind of look here and then I'll scroll down as I'm talking through some of the feedback. We got some similar feedback here. Again, our results, I'll pull that up and so you guys can see. Wrong one. That's here it is. So for our employment and education, you can see we had a lot of ratings in important or essential. And then when we did see higher ratings in neutral, we took a closer look at those and looked through the feedback to make sure we were understanding the whys there. But you can see for education too, we had similar results. And then for at the end of the sections, people were able to give more direct feedback too. And we had a lot of similar feedback about some of these maybe being too specific or wanting to tweak them a little bit. And we did make some changes, and others we noted that we needed to do the training to explain why they were different or why they were um, how you would use them in the different situations. Um, there were some items given in both education and employment about some possible objectives that would be potentially beneficial to have in the preset. Some of the times we went ahead and like added those or modified what we had to kind of get there. I think one example was, we tweaked this developer tailor your resume and cover letter, and we expanded it to be like, and we're participating in mock interviews um, because somebody had mentioned something about mock interviewing, and this one maybe didn't have it or was too specific. Maybe it wasn't and. So we did make some changes throughout those to make those a little more universal to kind of fit. And then others were very good suggestions, but we didn't see them as being something that would always would be used as a preset. So we wanted to remind folks that just because the objectives that we have listed are here doesn't mean that you can't use that add other option for your customers that have additional objectives they need to meet to be successful. So if you had provided some suggestions on things you would like to see and they're not on the list, it's not at all that we were saying like they weren't good objectives to use. We just didn't think they would be great on a preset, but no, there will be situations in which customers will need those. And want to continue to encourage folks that when that happens, definitely use the other. Don't try to fit everybody into the presets, but we have the presets here to help facilitate some of the common flows that we're seeing customers go through. I think that covers most of the feedback for that section. Does anybody have any questions on that or if you feel like you left feedback that I am not directly like um, discussing, definitely feel free to bring that up and we can let you know why we did or didn't go a certain way. All right, up next we have training. And I do want to note we have like purpose for these goals that we'll be including as like info bubbles and trainings to help folks kind of better understand some of these goals. Um, so for training, I'll sit like I have been, sit here and let you kind of look through these and then adjust. Oh, didn't mean to adjust so quickly. Adjust the view as we keep talking through. So for training, we got some really great feedback as well. And for that, a lot of it we feel is going to be part of the training that we provide on why some of these credentials are broke out differently. We did try to standardize some of the language here. So we're looking at more earning the the actual credential or certificate or degree versus just completing the program. Um, and we broke a couple of other things out to make sure that if they are doing training, outside of WIOA, we still have objectives that can support that work, and note that. And then here's where we kind of we're doing that mapping to the services. So we're going to make sure we have everything and we're not missing any objectives that might support career training or youth services. And we do have some objectives that are duplicative across goals, and that is intentional. A lot of objectives can support the same goal. Like I think in our employment one, you know, updating your resume and preparing for interviewing and all that, that can support a lot of the different employment goals. And the same can be true for some of the stuff that we see in our training as well as just helping our students be successful or the customers be successful in their training. And then some of the goals were too specific, was another comment that we got. So we did change things. One of them was having journeyman as part of the registered apprenticeship. So we did take that out and clean that up. We did that in a couple of different places. We got a few comments about different things being um, a little too specific. So we changed it where we realized, yes, that was too specific. And we noted for others that, hey, we need to have additional training around this because there was a reason and an intention for it being so specific. Um, And we did want to point out, customers can have goals in multiple areas, potentially all areas, though we wouldn't maybe likely see that all the time. So we're not saying just because you have a training goal doesn't mean you can't also have an employment goal or, education goal. Some of the comments we got were around like, how to handle that. And you could just add multiple goals and all different, for all different types of goals. Some other comments that we got around training were adding some objectives around MSGs. We are going to be having flags and more business logic added to the services that trigger the MSG versus an objective. A lot of times we can assume if they're getting this objective, they're probably going to have a service that triggers an MSG. However, we don't know, what the customer is going to end up doing. So we are going to be putting a lot of that on the service. So when they hit the service, they're going to be having flags that let the career planner and the customer know like they're going to be on the hook for this. So we had a couple of items about that and wanted to point out that we are going to be doing that, but we're going to tie it more directly to the services that are triggering, or we know that for in-school youth, they're always on the hook, so we're going to be flagging that a different way for them. Um, I believe that covers the training feedback we got. Any questions or comments on that? And we're gonna be adding training to around how this process is going to be streamlining workflows. So as we're doing things like our goals and our application and our various assessments, we want to embed business logic that helps us identify when things are answered a certain way. We can automatically add goals and objectives to the customer's profile, so that when you're figuring information out in an assessment that is clearly tied to this customer needing a goal, or objectives to address that, the system can automatically start adding those for you. So then when you come into their career plan, you're just building those out with, when you plan on starting those and finishing those with the customer versus having to re-add a bunch of stuff you might have already determined based on other application or assessment items that you've completed with them. That is going to be part of the work we do as we start, once we get our assessments flushed out, then we can determine, okay, how can we determine based on what we're asking, this is like a direct map to know we need to add a goal or objective based on answers they provided. And then, maintaining this online, you're not going to be required to keep paper IEP or ISSs. You're going to just do this in the system. It's going to also serve as your change request or your, everybody calls it a little bit different, something different, but whenever you change your career plan, you have to fill all that out and re-sign it. The system is going to automate a lot of that, and have a change log so that you're not required to fill out forms and have things re-signed, but you can just update in the system. And when necessary to get a customer signature, facilitate that through the system. We know everybody has, pretty active caseloads, and we want to make sure that folks understand like we're going to be providing a lot of training on this and working to help make the universal online career plan streamline things. So you're not having to keep, paper and digital. You'll move to the digital career plan. I have just a little bit longer. I do need to turn things over to Taylor. Taylor, is it okay if I take another 10 minutes, you think?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. So we have our last two, which were a little more streamlined. We didn't have as many goals and objectives within them. Um, let me jump. It was in another survey, so let me jump to that survey. For our for our support service and our follow-up ones, we received much higher percentages of these were, clear and straightforward. For support service, we I'll kind of see if I can maybe zoom out well, I don't want to zoom out too much. You can almost see all of them. The youth ones cut off a little bit, but we will have these where the additional categories come into play that allow you to filter things down, and make sure we're encompassing the full range of support services that can be offered. We do have most of these falling under all, but then there's a break at the bottom where some are only available for adult and dislocated workers. This one's only available for youth. Oop, wrong page. For our feedback for these, we got some feedback on, sorry, scrolling down the bottom. We got some feedback on just the process of surveying and better ways to structure surveys that we need to do in the future for this. And then we also got some feedback on just wanting to have more conversation around this than survey. So we'll definitely make sure to do that moving forward. And I know this was sent out to a couple of front end staff who might not have had the opportunity to be on some of our discovery calls. So we'll want to make sure that, maybe we're having a short meeting with people before we do the survey in the future, so we could kind of talk through things, show them a little bit about what they're going to see before they see it. So we have noted that for moving forward. And then we had some people wonder if support service needed to be a goal. We did choose to break these out in the different types and include support service and follow-up service, so that this is going to allow us to have better reporting and mapping of the types of goals and objectives and services that are being used to support those. We also want to make sure folks know that this is our first iteration of the preset goals and objectives that we're going to use. However, throughout the existence of the system, we're going to be running queries on usage of these. So if we find nobody's using some of these goals or objectives, or that we have a lot of others entered in, we can look through those others, determine, commonalities of people are consistently using this, and continue to customize and build these goals and objective listings to meet the needs of what is happening in the field. So that kind of goes back to some folks were saying, I don't know if this is going to be used a lot, or maybe we want to add this. Um, we might start out one way saying, like, yeah, it might not be used a lot, but this is still an option. So we want to keep it in the list and find that, after a year, nobody's used it and reconsider maybe removing it. And we might find a bunch of others that people are adding consistently, like they have this one type that everybody seems to be adding that we want to go ahead and add to our list too. So we wanted to let folks know that this will be evolving as we learn more about how the field is using it. And by having the presets and these options, we're able to do that better. Um, and then we did have a few folks note like they thought some of these were too um, the way they were written was too narrow of a scope. So we did tweak a little bit of these to make it a little more open so that we weren't like saying folks couldn't use them if they weren't like doing a training program or something like that. They could use them in the more all-encompassing ways that they should have been capturing. So there wasn't a lot with support service that we changed, but we did make a few tweaks based on that. Any questions on that before I hit our last one of follow-up? All right, so follow-up is where we start to see more of a split. We have a goal for adult and dislocated worker and a goal for youth. We did tweak our goal for youth a little bit based on some feedback. And then for our objectives, you'll see some of these objectives are youth only, some are for all, and then again here, some are for dislocated worker and adult only. So I'll sit right here so you guys can kind of look at this, and then I'll move on to the youth one. We had very similar feedback on the goals and objectives here. A lot of people had these were very clear or they were mostly clear and then provided a little context. That's where we ended up changing the youth a little bit. And then our objectives and our categories all had very high ratings of very clear, mostly clear. And then for the narrative feedback we got, again, we had some folks concerned about caseload. And so we want to make sure we're providing really good training around how we should be using this to streamline workflows and not adding additional work onto people's caseloads. There were some questions around success stories because we have a objective of, sharing their success. And the Illinois Work submitting success stories via Illinois WorkNet. We will have training on that, and there will be a training module on that. So if there are OEOs who are not already using that, we have a ton of them who use that because we use the Illinois WorkNet success story page as a place we can gather examples for the annual report submitted to DOL. So I know a lot of you are really familiar because it's been a best practice to put them there. But if you're not, or you have new staff, that will be part of training. That will be stuff that we support you all on. Let's scroll down so you can look at the youth. Let's see. Um, and I believe that is all. I kind of touched on the other part of having a better, we got some feedback on better ways um, to survey or engage with getting the feedback. And then there's a couple other comments in here on this item as well about clarity of some of the objectives. So we did tweak a little bit of those. Um, it was noted that some of them could maybe be combined. And so we noted the ones that we didn't combine that for training, we need to make it very clear how these objectives are different and can be used in different situations. Do you guys have any questions on any of the goal or objective preset lists that we have looked at today? So if you guys have any concerns about these, or you want to take a closer look at them, I'm happy to email you out a copy to take a closer look at. But our next step with these is we have a couple of things we're doing. We're gonna meet with NIU to talk a little bit about our bracketed information, determine the best data points to collect around those. We're crosswalking these with the service matrix to make sure we have objectives and goals to support all of our services. And then we are going to be putting those into a final requirements document to send to the state to get sign off so we can start moving these into development so that they can be used to pick from. Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead, Paul. Sorry, I saw your hand up.
Sorry, I was muted. Two questions. One is, in recording these services, training and, supporter services, is there going to be like a separate section or is it going to be attached for youth incentives?
How would incentives be recorded? Are you talking?
Because the incentives are not, for youth, incentives are not supporter services, but it's attached, I mean, like for achieving benchmarks, right? So how are those incentive to record their incentives? Are we going to be attaching it to the different objectives, or is it going to have like a separate section to record incentives for the objectives that was met or the benchmarks that was met?
I'm not sure what you're talking about
Yeah.
incentives. Are those
What
the
they-
measurable skill gains?
I was gonna say, go ahead, Mark.
I was just, yeah, what some local areas do to get people to show up, or reward them for doing something is give maybe a gas card or, some other kind of incentive in that nature. So it's not really a supportive services. That's not how we can capture it, but somewhere they need to document that they've given that out and spent those funds. Yeah, and Laura's saying in chat, it would be an activity tied to, I guess, to Paul's question, is it tied to the actual service then? So if the incentive is to complete training, you would have an activity documented as an incentive card tied to that training. Is that what you're saying, Laura?
Yeah, I'm thinking,
Okay.
I don't know that it'll be any different than it is now.
Okay. But that's certainly something for you,
Yeah,
Olivia,
but-
and the team to understand how we're going to
Yeah.
document that so
Yeah.
we can, and I'd like it to be in a way where we can track it better than just case notes. Or if it's a case note, at least it's drop down, it's something in a drop down where we can later go back and check and go, all right, what LWIAs are given these, make sure that it's, from a monitoring perspective, you want to make sure it's in policy and allowed. And what the limit is, if there is a limit, and from a performance or just review perspective, just kind of get a sense of how many people are doing this, and ultimately try and figure out why it's needed. Is there something we could do better that doesn't cost money or whatever? And I'm not at all Paul or the others that do this. I'm not trying to say that's not a good thing to do. I'm just saying it's just good to be able to track all this.
In the current system, it's an activity and you can put it in the system. It doesn't count for performance extendex. It provides a area for them to put notes so they can put why they provided that cash incentive. That's the name of the activity. If we feel that that's something that we want to attach to an objective versus just putting it in there,
I think that would be good.
yeah, then that's something we can consider.
And we would just attach it to whatever objective doing the cash incentive is supporting. So if it's, to get them to complete the courses or to participate in, whatever, we can attach it to that and then have our same comments that you add to that activity that feed into our overall communication page.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because the rule is that it has to be established when they're doing the career plan, and so that they know up front and it's stated up front, you will get an incentive if you complete this, if as long as it's allowed by local policy. So it makes sense to put it here.
Thank you.
Yeah. I do want to pass things over to Taylor. I want to make sure she has time to get through the service stuff. But if anybody has any questions, definitely feel free to put those in the chat and I can answer those. And then always happy to connect one-on-one with anybody. Like I said, if you want to see a copy of this or if you have questions or want to set up a call with me, always happy to do that. Just definitely let me know. You can send me an email or send me a message in the chat and we can get that taken care of. So Taylor, with that, I'll pass it over to you.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm going to start going over the user interface pieces of the Career Plan Services tab. So Olivia went over some goals and objectives. We're going to move on to the next step after goals and objectives. So let me share my screen with you all. So several sessions ago, some of you might have remembered us discussing service episodes. So now we're going to kind of expand upon that and go into the whole services area of the career plan to kind of walk through these different mock-ups, see how it would work, and get your feedback and thoughts and everything on that. So when you come into that career plan, I have a better view of that. So as Olivia has already shown you guys with the goals and objectives, you have your what area do you want to work in? You select your career plan, and once you select your career plan, you have these different tabs that you can work in. So when you're ready to start working with services, you would select your services tab here, and it would bring you to this little like home page with your list of view of services that a customer would have associated with them. So this list is going to be defaulted to show all of the services that a customer has assigned to them. You can filter it down by goals and objectives. So if you want to see just the services that are tied to a training, their training goal, you can do that and it'll show all of those. If you want to drill it down further and you just want to see what objectives have certain services, you can do that as well. So you can really customize that to see all services. You can view services by goals, by objectives. And then you will have this little button that you can also select to view unassigned services. So unassigned services would be like this one down here, where you can see that it's been added to the customer's career plan, but we haven't done anything with it yet. So it's not been touched other than added. No completion status has been selected, no plan start dates, end dates. It hasn't been assigned to a goal or objective. So if you need to go in and maybe you added 5 services and they already have 10 services on here and you don't want to have to dig through them, you can click this just to see the ones that have not been assigned to a goal or an objective yet. And then you'll be able to make your edits on those. So with that, in your completion status, you'll have this plan not started. So the real goal of this is that you'll be able to plan out a customer's entire services. If you already know upfront after going through the application, various assessments that they need, maybe these 10 services. You can go in here and click add service, which is going to bring up your add service modal, which we'll go over in just a few moments. And you'll be able to add all 10 of those services at one time. So you'll be able to really get them put in here. They will be defaulted to this NA goal not assigned, and then you can edit those. And maybe okay, for establishing eligibility for financial aid, we're going to do that, but maybe they don't need that until the fall semester because they're not going to start, maybe they're doing a CDL program through a local community college and they need financial aid for it, but they're not going to do it yet because the FAFSA is not open. So you could go ahead and plan that and put in your plan not started and the rough plan start date that you think that service is going to start. So it's a really nice way to kind of holistically plan out all of their services on the career plan at one time. And then you'll be able to also go in and add new services whenever you need to, make your edits to any existing services all at one time and in one place. On this list, you're going to have these different columns. So you're going to have your service name, your completion status, your plan start date, your end dates, and then your action item column. This is where you'll be able to click the view icon to view the details of that service. And you're going to have a nice little paperclip icon as well, because one thing that we're going to start doing is you'll be able to put an attachment with a service. So if maybe you have a training service and you need to attach, yes, weekly hours or something like that to show an attendance report, you can attach it right in here so that you don't have to attach it anywhere else unless you want to. But it's just a nice added feature that you'll be able to have. In the hamburger, you will have 3 additional columns here. You'll have planned end date that you can add in if you want to see it, and also program and sub-program. If you have a customer that's maybe co-enrolled, maybe they're maybe they're doing, adult and dislocated worker. You want to add these in so you can see which services are for adult and which services are for dislocated worker. If they're for one program and you don't want to see these, then you can leave them out of the hamburger here. Something that is new is this column all the way on the left-hand side, this little EE column. And there's going to be an info bubble here that explains what that is. And essentially what that is it's telling you that this service extends the 90-day exit window. We kind of stole this from Career Connect from LOIA 7. Christy shared some really nice screenshots with that. And it's just a really nice way up front for you to know, if I have this service on a customer's career plan, it's going to extend their exit. So you don't have any confusion. Maybe you're at, day 85 and a customer gets exited at day 90. And you go, oh shoot, this person doesn't need to be exited yet. And you add a new service for them. If you add one of these services that is not, like a supportive service that does not extend exit, you're going to know right here, hey, this does not extend exit, so they're still going to be exited. So it's just a nice visual for you to know what services extend exit and what services do not extend exit. And then also on this page, you'll have your add service button, which that's what we're going to view next. And then we're going to have a recommended services page. This will be viewed with you all later as it's still way under development. So what this will essentially be is, as a customer goes through the application and they complete various assessments, depending on how they answer those questions, it might trigger, hey, we recommend they need this service. Someone might be low income and maybe it triggers something about like maybe they need financial literacy services. This page will be where you'll be able to go to view all of those recommended services, and then you can add them to the career plan from there. It will tell you like why the service is recommended. You'll be able to add it to the career plan. You'll be able to start a referral, or you can remove it if they no longer need it. So they won't be on the career plan yet. It's just a page that'll recommend services for you. Any questions on this home page before we go into adding services? Okay, so when you are ready to add services to a career plan, you're going to click this add service button and it's going to pull up a modal to add services. This modal is going to have an info bubble here that explains how to add services to a career plan. There's going to be a direct link to the services matrix, so you can quickly pull that up if you need to look at that in more detail. And then you're going to select your program, your subprogram, and your service level. So if you have a customer who has been certified for a WIOA adult, and that's the only program they are certified under, this will default for you. You won't have to select anything. This will already be WIOA. This will already be adult. But once again, if maybe you have someone who's co-enrolled in adult and dislocated worker, this will still be defaulted to WIOA, but then you'll be able to select between adult and dislocated worker in this drop down. And this will expand further as we add new programs into the system. So if you end up having someone who's co-enrolled in WIOA or JTED, that would change here and things like that. Then you'll have your service level, so you'll be able to select, do you want to add career services, training services, supportive services, follow-up services, and if it's a youth, you'll have your youth program elements as an option. Once you have these 3 items filled out, you'll click the View Services button, and it's going to expand the modal with a list of all of the services that are under these areas. So this example is for career services. So when you select career services, it's going to pull up the list of all the career services that a customer can receive. You'll have all the names in here. You'll have right here, if it's a same-day service, that will be in a different color. I just can't do that in the mock-up, so it's visual that you know, hey, this is a same-day service, this is not a same-day service. You'll have a search bar up here, so if you're looking for a specific service and you don't want to scroll through this whole list, you can type in here and it'll pull up your search results. And then you'll have your service added column and your action column. So the action column, you're going to have this plus sign button, and that's how you're going to add services to the career plan. And you'll be able to do this for multiple services. So we might go through and say, I need to add these 3 services. I'm going to click that and it's going to add the service. In order for you to know the service was added, this column is going to update with a little check mark saying, hey, the service was added. That way, if you are adding multiple services at one time, you don't get confused and go, did I add English language education? I don't remember. I can look here and go, oh no, I didn't add it. And then I can go ahead and add it. So that should help you from not accidentally adding a service more than once. And then you will also have an info bubble icon here as well. And when you hover over the info bubble, it's going to give you the definition of the service from the services matrix. So you'll be able to see really quick and easy, especially might be helpful for new staff who may not know what every service means. You'll be able to hover over that, read the description, and then if you need more information, you could pull up the services matrix. So once you get all of your services added, you can close the modal and then they will populate on this table as this view right here, the NA goal not assigned. Questions on that piece? Or any comments or thoughts? Well, is this feature also linked with case notes, or do we have to enter individual case notes? So something that's going to be new with that is that when you add a service and you're actually editing the service, which is way down here, you have this comments box. This is going to basically replace the case note. So right now, when you add a same-day service in IWDS, once you hit save, that screen pops up that makes you add in a case note saying like case note supporting same-day service. That's not going to happen anymore. So the comment here is going to be your case note, and it will still live here in the services area of the career plan, and it's going to pull over in case notes. So it's going to be like we're going to have like a communications tab or something to that effect in case notes, so that you can view all of these comments that act as a case note without making you copy or paste. So we're kind of trying to do away with duplicative work and make the most use of these items where you're not having to put in case notes everywhere. Perfect. Any other questions on that? Okay, so once you have your services added to your career plan and you're ready to view services and edit services, you're going to click on this little eye icon, which is your view, and it's going to bring you to your view only page. So when you come to your view only page, we've got a couple of different examples here. So this is a view only of a non-same day service that does not have service episodes. You're going to have a few fields up here that are display fields. So they're going to be fields that cannot be editable. So it's going to tell you what program the customer is associated with, the subprogram, what service level the service is, and the grant number for that service as well. There are going to be a few additional fields that you'll be able to view. This is a new feature that we're actually implementing right now that's going to be across the system. So I believe some of you may have mentioned, like when doing UAT with Olivia's stuff with the create customer record, wanting to know who created the record. Something that's going to be in several areas is at the bottom here in the footer of the web page. You're going to have a little link that says record information. You'll be able to click on that and it's going to pull up a little modal that tells you the record information for this area. So like for this example, this is the record information for financial literacy services. So you can see who created this service, when it was created on, the last time it was updated, who updated it, and the last time it was updated on. This is going to be throughout the whole system. So when you're on the customer profile, you'll be able to click on this as well. And it's going to say like record information with the customer's name. And you're going to see who created the record and when it was last updated by. It's going to be used in multiple areas. So just a nice little way to be able to pull up anywhere what this looks like. And then below the line, you have all of your fields that are going to be editable when you click the edit button. So you'll have to select various items. We're not going to spend time on each item here, as those are going to change depending on what service you're entering. One thing I do want to note is that all services do need to be tied back to a goal and an objective. So you will have that on your edit page as well. So this is your non-same day services view, very simple. Has your display services at the top, and then your fields that can be editable at the bottom when you click the edit button. And then we have another view of that as well. Ooh, this is small. That is for the same day services that have service episodes. This is what we reviewed with some of you all several weeks ago. So if you do have a service that has service episodes, one, you're going to know right up front on the home page, because there's going to be a little link here that tells you episodes. So this is a brand new service that hasn't been, nothing's started with it, so there's no episodes associated with it. But you know, right here, SS Transportation, this person has 6 service episodes for transportation. So you'll be able to click on that and it'll take you right to the episodes, or you can also click the view button over here and it'll take you there as well. When you go into transportation and you see those episodes, the view page is going to look a little different. So you're going to have the view up here, which is going to mirror this item. The only thing is you're going to have a drop down here and you can select the different episodes you want to view. It'll default to your newest episode, but if maybe you want to go back and look at episode 5 or episode 4, you can click this drop down and move between the different episodes and view all of this information. So you might have ones that aren't set yet. You might have ones that are already completed that you want to go back and view. You can do all of that. And then at the bottom, you're going to also have a list view. So here you'll be able to see all the episodes compacted together. It just doesn't have all of the information that's up here. So you'll be able to see all the completion statuses, what episode number they are, if they have planned start dates, end dates. And then you'll be able to add new service episodes by clicking the add service episode. And you'll be able to edit service episodes by clicking the edit button in the action icon column. And then once again, if there's any attachments for service episodes, maybe for transportation, you need to put in a receipt for like a bus pass or something, you'll be able to attach that right here. So that's the view only for non-same day services and same day services with episodes. Any questions on that piece? Okay, so when you move in and you're ready to edit a service, once again, if you're doing an episode, you'll be able to click the edit button in the action column. And if you're on a non-same day service, you'll click the edit button in the top right over here. And it's going to bring you, once again, sorry, that is really small, to your edit page. So this is an episode example. So it's going to tell you which episode you're editing. If it's not a same day service and it doesn't have episodes, that wouldn't be there. Once again, you'll have your display fields here, so you'll be able to always look back at those. And then you're going to start filling out your information. So you're going to select your providing entity, your completion status, you're going to assign a goal, and then once the goal is selected, you're going to assign an objective, plan start dates, plan end dates, things like that. And then you'll have your comments at the bottom, so you'll be able to put in any comments that you need for this specific service. And then you'll have the add file button here as well, which it'll bring up an add file modal, and you'll be able to upload any files associated with this service. And then once you're done, you'll be able to click the save button and it'll save the service. And then you'll be able to view those changes in the view only page and also back in the home page. If you go, oh man, I don't want to edit this service, you can click cancel and it'll take you out of here without saving your changes. And then there is a delete button. One thing I want to note about the delete is that the only services that a career planner will be able to delete themselves will be these ones that are the NA goal not assigned. So if you're on this page and you're adding services and maybe you meant to add English language education, you accidentally clicked financial literacy services and you go, oh shoot, I didn't mean to add that service. This customer doesn't need it. You'll be able to go right into this view icon and then go into that edit icon, and then you'll be able to hit delete. Because there has been no data saved to this service, you will be able to delete it. And when you click delete, a modal is going to pop up that requires you to put in a reason for deletion, and you would type in, like service was added in error. However, if you have gone in and made changes to a service, you've edited it, maybe you've selected your providing entity, you've changed the completion status to plan not started, you've done all the things you needed to do, and then you go back later and go, oh, hey, this customer doesn't need this service, I don't need it anymore. You will not be able to delete the service as a career planner, and that will have to go to whichever role we decide can delete, likely like your local system administrator. So career planners can delete if no fields have been filled out, no data has been saved to the service. Once data has been saved, then you'll have to have your local system administrator make that deletion for you. Any questions on how to edit services and the deletion piece? Do you guys like the idea of being able to delete services if they were added in error? Or anything like that? And another thing to note is if you added maybe a service episode in error and you go, oh, I didn't mean to, they only need 5 transportation episodes and I accidentally added a 6th one. If you delete an episode in this new service, it's just going to delete the 1 episode. I know that's a big issue in IWDS right now, that if you go and delete a service and it has episodes associated with it, it deletes all the episodes as well. And that can get kind of messy, especially then you have to go back in and re-add in all these services and backdate things. So we are really splitting out service episodes so that you can view them individually. It's really easy for you to see how many episodes are on there per service. And you'll be able to delete just 1 if it was added in error instead of having to delete the whole thing. Another thing to note is going back to those services that maybe your LOIA doesn't offer the services and the only option is a referral, or you don't have a providing entity that offers that service. When we are back to this ad view, we're still kind of workshopping how this will look. But what we want to do here is if you don't have a service available in your LOIA and the only option to provide it is a referral, then when you go to add it here, it'll likely have some sort of message that says, like there's no providing entity, or your LOIA doesn't offer this, and it's going to take you directly, give you an option directly to start a referral service for that. So that way you don't have to add it. And once you add it to the customer's career plan and you go in to edit it and you're, all the way down here and you're trying to select a providing entity and it's empty and you're going, why is there no providing entity? And then you find out, oh, that's because we can't offer that, or we don't have a relationship with someone who offers that, and we need to do a referral. So we're going to kind of fine tune that a little bit when we get a little further along on how that looks, so that up front if there is a service that you can't offer and you need to do the referral piece instead. The referrals, we'll definitely go over that in more detail on how that's connected here once the referral system is built. That is currently being built outside of IWDS. But once it is built, you'll have a referral link in the customer's profile that you'll be able to go to and be able to start referrals here. and we're going to embed it where we can and where it makes sense into the career plan as well. So it's going to be really easy and streamlined for you to do referrals when and if you need to do them. So that is the services user interface through here. That's not what we want to look at. Any feedback? Is there anything that you think is missing or anything that you think would be better for us to do so that we can get this moving through? I've already reviewed this with the state, and if you guys think this looks good, we're going to move forward with getting this put into a requirements document so that our state SMEs can start getting sign off, and we'll start getting this piece into development so that later down the road we'll be able to do UAT on it. But any other feedback or anything from everyone here that you think would be nice to haves or anything at all? Or something you don't like how it looks?
I'll go out on a limb here. This is a lot of information really
Yes.
fast. And I'm processing like what I'm looking at. And the one thing that keeps throwing me, because it's so different from IWDS that it's like hard to wrap your brain around at first. I'm struggling with the whole notion of the services having planned start dates and then start and end dates. Like this seems confusing to me. And I don't know whether it's I don't know whether it's that I'm thinking about the planned start dates and like, why is that necessary? Or whether it is seeing the planned start date up front and center before the start and end date. Like if it's simply switching the table around, because that is confusing to me. And if it's confusing to me, I can guarantee it's going to be confusing to frontline staff. So I don't know whether it's a training issue, but I'm just kind of struggling with the notion of why.
So oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna note, I don't have time today to go over it, but I'm gonna get this in front of you guys soon. Um, we built the table in the system for goals and objectives, which is a very similar table. And it doesn't fit well. So we need to look at redoing the data columns that we're going to show you guys to be fewer, because right now you have to scroll to see the whole table and that's not very user friendly. So I think what you were saying is like we need to pick 3 to 4 data points that are actionable and needed by the career planner, with the ability to use the hamburger to see additional data as needed, but not require scrolling right off the bat. Now, if you want to see everything, we're going to let you have that hamburger and build it out, export it, do what you need. But you'd made the comment like maybe we don't need to see that. I think that is a great way to go because it's not looking very great now that we actually have it in the system to have that many data columns in that small space. Um, and then the why we have it, I don't know, Laura, if you want to add anything here. There's a couple reasons we chose to have it. One is we can start to track when data is not getting put into the system or when customers aren't moving forward, because we can say, hey, you planned on doing this and it's 2 months later and you haven't started. Does something just need updated in the system? Or, maybe they really something happened and it just needs changed in their plan. And then also when we have a gap, because maybe they broke their leg or something, we can say, like we do plan on doing this with them, even though it might span outside of the 90-day, because we have to get rid of the gap service. So we can use plan start dates to show that we do plan on re-engaging them, but they broke their leg and they literally can't start training during that 90-day window.
Exactly. Yeah, because plan gap is not allowed anymore by DOL. You can't say plan gap or holding. It's future plan services. So this was our way to build that into the system so that it can show anyone looking at this customer something happened. We had to extend the start date because something happened. So, and it also gives having this on here. And if you develop the career plan with everything that you found out through the intake, the initial and the comprehensive assessments, and you put it all out there for the customer, because the customer can now access their career plan at any time, then it shows them, okay, here's what's next in my steps. Here's what all is on my plate. And so it's kind of nice for them, I would think, to be able to see, okay, this is planned, this is coming up for me. You know, but those are the two reasons why if we did that.
Yeah, so it's just a nice way to have like your whole career plan planned out in advance. So instead of going and adding a service when you're ready to start it, you can plan it in advance. And then I think, like Olivia said, if you have a service on here that's planned and you have a planned start date and you pass that planned start date, eventually, you're going to get some sort of notification saying like, hey, what's going on with the service? It was you had planned to start it, and kind of keeping track that way. So it's just like I said, I know it's different from what you've seen in IWDS, but this is a way for you to fully develop the career plan with the customer and be able to say, like, here's the 10 services that we've identified that you need to be successful to complete all of your goals and objectives in this program. You'll be able to put them all on here and then tie them to your goals and objectives. And if they haven't started yet, you'll be able to plan them and have like a rough planned start date of when you think they are going to start it and when they're going to end it. And then as they start in, so you would come back in for a planned not started service like this one right here. And it's now April 10th and you're like, okay, we're actually going to do this now. You'll be able to go in and edit it, and you're going to change the completion status from planned not started to open. And then you'll be able to put in your actual start dates and your actual end dates as needed. If it's a same day service, then you'll have, you might change it quickly from open to successful completion, but it's just a nice way to have it all built out early for the career planner to view, and like Laura said, the customer to view. And Rory, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, but I mean, if you need to finish your
Nope. Go right ahead.
by all means, go ahead. No, I like that, and kind of going to what Crystal was saying, and what Olivia was saying, was she saying like redoing something with the view? What I was going to ask is, I don't know if it's feasible. I know I'm mock-ups of previous screens. I can't remember if it was like the search customer one. There were, this is a while back, but you were showing us how there could, I think, be options where you can choose like the planned end dates, planned start dates. Those fields are there. We have to have them. We need, they're good. But like as far as just the view, there was a thing where like when you like I'm looking at your screen now where you can kind of choose like which columns you want to view right away, and then you can like add more columns to view later. So it's not like eliminating
so we'll just take it'll all be in this hamburger.
Be a solution where it doesn't look as crowded. So like you can just choose like, well, you know what, I just want to skim through this now. I want to locate, one service that we were planning to do with this customer. I just want to kind of scroll down and find it. So is that an option then? Like to like just choose which columns you want to view like on your customized, view for.
Yeah. So what we would do is then really would love to get some feedback from you guys on what columns do you think should be standard here.
Yeah, like default columns will be there.
And then you'll have the other columns that you could add. Okay. So I already I'm not going to update the table right now because it will be a mess for a moment. But yeah,
I'm thinking like when
remove the planned start date.
Yeah, no, I was just saying.
And put it in the hamburger. So in the hamburger, so the columns you could add if you wanted to view them would be planned start date, planned end date, program, sub-program.
Right. And that's what I thought.
Do we think that service
thing you have there, yeah.
So then we would have service name, completion status, start date, and end date. Do we think those 4 fields or those 4 columns make sense to be standard?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would leave that open. Yeah, like maybe a survey poll for another time or something. I just wanted to make sure that that's what you meant with that Post-it note that you attached there. That would be an option then to just kind of have a default standard set columns that should always be there. And then, if it's too crowded or something, you can always add or not.
Yeah, so it'll work just like this customer list where you have this hamburger and you can.
Yeah, that's what
Yep, add more, and then, once you add a bunch, then, you would have to scroll.
Just to, just
But then you can reset it
simplify
back
the
to the
view
simple view.
if it's looking too crowded or something. Okay.
Yep, so that's
and then-
exactly how we'll have this one work as well.
And then my other question, and sorry, this was probably covered in previous sessions or maybe in today, but and I might have missed it. So and this is again one of those, because if those of us have used the current IWDS for so long, we're kind of just so used to like how things look in the setup. So it could be, sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around how this new thing will be so much better, but just how, how it's going to look. So right now in the current IWDS, when you want to create a service record of any kind, like enrollment training or any service in the application, the customer's application menu, there's the option says list enrolled services. You click on that. And then if you wanted to add a service, you'd add a service that way. With the new IWDS, our service records, and I don't know if I'll be able to word this question in a way it'll make sense. Hopefully it will. But in the new IWDS, will you be able to do that? Or are all services, when you're creating and adding, any service record, is the point of entry for doing that going to be the universal career plan? Like, is that the place where you have to start to create services because you're by tying them to objectives? Or is there still like a manual, quote unquote, way to go in and enter services? Did that make sense the way I was asking it?
Are you meaning like enrolling services, like the services that are on the services matrix, or are you thinking more like self-services?
Well, mostly like enrolling services, yeah, but really any service. Like right now, you would go into the IWS in the menu, the application menu. There's that option, it says list enrolled services, and you click on that, and you would start from there, because there is no IEP or universal career plan in IWS right now, as we all know. So I didn't know if if you need to add or create a service record to enroll somebody in an enrolled service. Does that all start by first going into the customer participants universal career plan like this, and then going through like by tying it to an objective or goal, and then add service? Or are we is that how we're going to be adding all the services to enroll people? Or will there be another option to enroll services, to enroll them in services like the home screen or something like that?
Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but all of these services would need to be tied to a goal and an objective. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So to your point to that, Rory, it kind of depends on where you're at in the customer life cycle. If you already have the career plan developed and you have your goals and objectives selected, you could add them early, but you wouldn't be able to edit them and save them, because when you'd be able to add them and they'd be like this view, the goal not assigned. Because when you go to edit the service, you have to assign a goal and an objective. So if you don't have goals and objectives established yet, you won't be able to edit the service. However, we do have, if we go back into IWDS 2.0 right now, and we go into a customer profile, under application summary, they do have a table that has all of their applications. And below that, this is all dummy data, so don't really worry about all of this.
We've been doing AT on it. Yeah.
But yeah, you'll be able to view the services right here in the customer profile. So you'll be able to select the application that you want to view. So maybe if you have a customer that has an old application, you could go back and look at those services, or you could look at the current application. So you can see with Charles here, we're looking at all of his services that are tied to this application. Right. And you do have a quick add service button here.
That's what I was wondering out, because I was thinking, just so we, inform staff who might help us test this down the road. If like, they want to say, well, I want to practice enrolling somebody in training or job search assistance or something. Do they have to go through the universal career plan, make sure that that's a goal and objective, and then add service through that way? But now I see that they can also do it this way. So
yeah, so this is just going to be a quick add. So when you do that, it's going to be set up just like it is here.
Right. It'll take you there.
Yeah, it'll take you to this, this pop-up, and you'll be able to select what you need to select, add your service. but you're not going to be able to manage the services from here. So if you need to go in and like actually manage the services, then you're going to have to go into the career plan and switch over
Right.
here, which that's not on here yet. But
Like
yeah,
if they
so
finish one of their training courses, something you need to close it out or
yeah, you'll have to
finish
do
the
all of that in there as well. But yeah,
thank
you'll have a nice quick view here. And when we enter UAT, for this way down the road, all of this will be emptied out, this dummy data. So if you don't have any services on a customer yet, they're not going to show. It's going to just say like, no services added for this customer.
Got it. No, I mean, I like that there's the dummy data there now though, because it shows how it will look. So it gives us a good idea in the future how that'll look. So, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and we'll definitely probably end up mirroring this table to this table of like what's most important to view.
Mhm.
So right now it's kind of crowded when you actually look at it because there's, the planned start dates, planned end dates, start dates, end dates, programs, etc. But yeah, so you'll have a nice quick ad here. And then if you need to do more comprehensive work on the career plan in the services, and maybe you're going in and you're now assigning your plan start dates, you're assigning them to your goals and objectives and things like that, you'll be able to do it here.
So to follow Rory's point through then, if you are on that quick ad service page and you go to it and it brings up just like it does in the other way, and you didn't already have a goal or objective planned for that person, is it going to dump you back into the career plan so you can put it in, or is it going to quick add that too?
Nope, it's just going to add the service and it's just going to be this view in a goal not assigned.
And then you'd have to go back into the career plan.
And then you'd have to go into the career plan if you don't have goals and objectives set yet, you'll have to go into the career plan to do that. Because you're not editing when you add the service, you're not editing it. So it's going to be a different process than it is in IWDS. Currently in IWDS, when you add, you go to that list enrolled services and you click the ad and you fill all that out. When you select your service, it automatically takes you to your page where you're filling all of this out. This system's not going to do that. It's going to just be like a quick ad. That way you can add multiple services at one time. And once you have your services added, you then have to come into this list and edit them. So it's not going to be forcing you to fill out all of that information per service when you're adding them.
But it is going to ensure that all services enrolled, staff assisted, otherwise self-access, that all services are, if I understand correctly, it's going to help ensure that we have to go back and to do it here. It's going to ensure that all services are tied to a goal task, within the universal career plan. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Unless it's a self-service and information only service, those you can add at any time as soon as the customer record is created and the customer has a customer profile. Maybe they're not planning on enrolling in WIOA and they're just coming in and doing some, self-assisted stuff through the
Using the career
resource
room or something.
Yeah, you'll be able to come over here and add self and information only services
Oh, good.
per customer at any time. But once they do enroll into like a WIOA program, when you go to that add service and it brings up this little modal again, you'll actually be able to still add self and information only services here as well. So you'll be able to do it in both places. And if you do have a self or information only service that ties to the career plan, you'll be able to tie it to a goal or an objective as well. But it won't be required because that customer may not, have a career plan yet. So yeah, you'll be able to do that in both places too. But yes, all the enrolling services, the staff assisted services, pretty much everything that's in the services matrix, it will require you to tie them to a goal or an objective in the universal career plan. And then let me go back here. Mark said back in the chat, maybe the plan start date shows until the actual start date is entered and then plan date really isn't needed anymore. So it goes away and only has start and end dates. So we actually have that set up similar already. I just can't demo it for you yet because we don't have it built in the system. But what's going to happen when you're editing a service and you select plan not started. This is a same day service example. So the plan start date and the planned end date fields are going to be required because it's a planned completion status. With it being same day service, once you select your planned start date, it's going to auto populate your end date for you so that they are matching. If it's a non same day service and you do plan not started, it will not auto populate your end date because they could be different dates. But as soon as you switch this from plan not started to open, these gray out and then these open up. So yeah, we have some logic in the system to do that for you so that depending on what completion status you select, it's going to let you know like which dates you need to fill out when you're editing the service. And I see, Allison, your item in here, similar to Mark's point about having a planned start, not having a planned start date, or having, I'm sorry, I can't talk. Point about having a planned start date until a start date is added. Is it possible to have planned end date instead of end date until an end date is entered? We could do it here, like on this page, but I don't think that we'd be able to do it on this list. And that's because you're going to have services in all different areas of completion statuses. So that's why you'll have that table hamburger, because you might have some that don't have any planned dates yet because of they're not assigned. You might have a service that's planned not started, so you're going to have a planned end date and a planned start date showing, but you haven't set your actual start and end dates yet. So we wouldn't be able to customize it here because that would just be way too messy on the list view, but we could definitely customize it like here so that depending on what status they're in here shows what dates for you. So definitely possible in one area, but would not be possible on the list.
Yeah, I agree. It wouldn't have to be necessarily on the default or the standard list view, but just having that field within service records to enter a plan and date is what I was saying. It kind of
Yep,
helps.
and we'll have that for all of them. You'll have a planned start date to enter and a planned end date to enter.
Yeah.
Yep. And like I said, if it's a same day service, it'll pop. It's same for the actual dates too. If it's a same day service and you have an open completion status and you put in 4/10/25 as the start date, it'll populate 4/10/25 as the end date. So you don't have to put it in twice for same day services, but it would not do that for your non-same day services. Yeah, the system will be set up to be intuitive to know if it's a same day service or not a same day service and what dates are going to be required depending on what completion status you select.
So what's the default for how the table is, how it's going to order them?
So right now I'm thinking we would just take out planned start date. And we would have service name, completion status, start date, and end date. So this would be like actual start date, actual end date. And then the table or the columns that you could add via the hamburger would be planned start date, planned end date, program, sub-program.
Which is fine. What I meant was, how is it gonna, how does it auto-populate how does it auto-populate the table?
How would you like to see it? I mean, would you want to see like planned start date, planned end date, and then actual start date, actual end date? Or would you want the starts and the ends to be together? So it'd be like planned start date, planned end date, end date. What makes the most sense to you guys from a field perspective of viewing it?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about frontline staff using it and like in your daily stuff. I mean, having the plan stuff, fine. But if the goals not, what I'm concerned about is making sure that like the goals not assigned, the stuff that's just in there because you planned it, appears at the bottom consistently.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because I don't
Yeah.
want frontline people being confused, just glancing at it thinking, oh, it's in there, and then they find out that it's not. I would rather have them, when they first glance at the table, see the stuff that's currently like what's open, basically. what do I got going on with this person? And then the successful completions fall down the list, and then the goals not assigned are at the bottom, so they have to go and move them, actually do something with them, look for it, be proactive about that. But when they're just glancing, if they're in there on the day-to-day basis, they're not in there talking to the person about the IEP every single day. They're just in there doing maintenance or whatever. They're going to want to see the stuff that's open at the
So are we
top.
thinking for completion status, like have it default to all open first? And then successful completion maybe second? And then unsuccessful completion third? And then plan not started fourth, and then these and a goal not assigned fifth?
I mean, I
Or
don't know
would
what
you want to
anybody else
see
thinks.
planned not started before the completion ones?
I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I mean, I could see it being confusing the way it is right now.
Yeah, I personally think that it should be the latter. I think you should have open and then planned and then the completed ones at the end.
Okay. And then the goal not assigned ones at the very bottom.
Yeah, because if you've got a lot and you're not showing, like, if they forget to choose like 10 rows per view, I know I see at the bottom you can choose, but if they forget to do that, then plan not yet started, they might forget, like, hey, we're supposed to be doing this kind of out of sight, out of mind thing. So I agree with Crystal and Laura.
Now, I don't have it built on this mockup yet, but it's something we could definitely add. And I know we're over time, but real quick on that, would you want a more robust search mechanism up here, like a filter? So that, like, right now you can only filter by goals and objectives, but would you want to be able to filter the table so like it only displays your open ones or your plan not started, or maybe you want to just see all your same day services or anything like that? Would that be helpful to kind of build that out a little bit more robust for you? Because if you think having more detailed search filters here would be helpful, we can definitely build that in. So you have like how it is in the customer list, we have these search filters over here. So you can search and get a real detailed list of what you want to see. We could do the same thing in services.
Could you go back
Yes.
to the last screen?
Yeah. This one right here.
Yeah, so on this, so I see, you got page 1, 2, and 3. So is that, so if there's like 6, what's on there? 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 7th one service would be on page 2?
Yes, so if you would be able to change your view in the pagination here to view like 10 per page or 5 per page. And then depending on how many services you have, it would add additional pages.
Okay,
So if we have, let's say you have 12 services and you have it defaulted to 10 per page, you'd have 2 pages and you'd have the first 10 here and you'd have to click over to page 2 to see the other 2 services.
so if we had it defaulted to 30, then all 30 services would show, right? So
Yep, so it would work just like this here. You can
Okay.
change it to 5, 10, 25, and 50 are the 4
Okay.
defaults we use.
For me, I don't know that we would need any more like robust filtering for this specific one. If I can see, because like what I like to see is all of the services, right? I do like the order that who was that talking about? Crystal was talking about having the open and then the completer planned or whatever, that sequential order. But then I like to see everything on the same page so that I can see all the services and what has started, what hasn't started, and all that kind of stuff. So as long as I can see all 50 of them, I don't think it's and it's ordered that way, I don't think you necessarily would need like
The more robust filtering.
more robust filter. For me anyway.
Yeah, and I would, like I said, you'd definitely be able to do that. I don't know if you'd ever have a situation where you'd have more than 50 services.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Especially with the service episodes now, you're not going to have 6 lines of transportation in here. You're just going to be able to see real nice right here, like, hey, I have 6 episodes for transportation. So that saves up some space. And yeah, so we'll reorder that so it goes open and then plan not started, successful completion, unsuccessful completion, and then the NA goal not assigned. So then if you're the career planner and you're needing to go in and fix these goal not assigned, you could click this really quick just to pull those up and get them assigned to a completion status and do what you need to do. And then you would still be able to filter by goal and objective. So you just want to see those services tied to a specific objective. You'd be able to do that here, and we'd still have it in the same order as it would be defaulted here.
And actually, the closer I look at it, just real quick, on the top bar where it's the gray bar, there's just, with all the columns, it looks like you've got the up and down arrows. Is that is that to show like if it could be like if they wanted it in different order, does that mean they can select it like reverse chronological? But
Yes, so you could do that as well. So you could click this and it would flip it. So then it would show like your goal not assigned first.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you want to see them in alphabetical order. You could click this and it would filter by alphabetical order on service name.
Oh,
Or
okay.
if you want to see, in order, date order by start date or end date, yeah, you'd be able to do all of that. So you could kind of customize the view just by using those little filters. All right, I know we're over time. Are there any other final thoughts or questions on here before we close out today? If not, thank you all for joining. Hopefully we will have UAT ready for you next week. We do have, just to give you all a quick heads up, and actually I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick one more time. We are changing how we do the UAT documents, just to give you all a heads up for next week. Originally, we would send that email out. You guys would let us know which emails of the individuals who were attending, and we'd have to give them access. We are now we found a way to do that where we don't need to give individuals access anymore. We're still going to be sending out the email with the links of the UAT notebook and the guides for you. But you will be able to now go into the content page here for those of you who have access to our content page. And where all the recordings are. Under the full list of resources, you'll be able to click this, and all of those guides and the UAT notebook are now going to be here as well. So it'll be a nice quick place for you to go back and pull the UAT notebook. We do already have the ETPL pre-screening UAT guide up here, the one that'll be done the following week, the training plan submission. We already have that guide out here. So it'll be a nice way for you to view it here. And then we will also send them out via email every week before we do UAT also. So just a quick heads up on that so that we won't have to maintain access anymore. You should be able to access all of this without, and you shouldn't lose access partway through, which I know had happened to some of you before. So just to give you all a heads up for that next week, and then we are planning next Thursday to do that training program, the ETPL pre-screening UAT for you all. Otherwise, thanks everyone and have a great rest of your Thursday.